What's up, guys? Bailey here. Today in this video, I'm going to be going over UFC Fight Night Shanghai card predictions, where Johnny Walker is going to be facing Zhang Minyang. And what I think is going to be a pretty banger main event. Actually, this is a sleeper card. We got some pretty good fights on here, and yeah, let's just go over it. So first, we got Tai Lake Naraji versus Kiefer Crosby. I think, listen, man, Tai Lake Naraji. Let's talk about him real quick. Listen, he's a finisher. I think he has 11 or 12 TKOs or knockouts on his record. He has a lot of sharp elbows. I've seen, in his first fight in the UFC where he got a finish with just an elbow that absolutely flatlined. I forgot the name he was fighting, and even if I did, I probably would butcher it. But he absolutely he came in and just went boom and just flatlined him with an elbow. And it was awesome. Also, I think that he does have more dynamic striking than Kiefer Crosby. But I think that, listen, Kiefer Crosby, even though he is 10-5, he's lost to really solid guys. You know what I mean? He didn't lose to guys who, didn't know who they were doing, didn't know what they were doing, or he had no business losing to. And he's super tough. He's really, really durable. I've seen him, take, there will be fights where he's cut up. And he looks like he went through a train wreck, or, he just chucked him through a 2 flights of glass, you know what I mean? And he just stands up and he just keeps going. And I think that is really sharp boxing. And I think that that's something that he could easily use to his advantage against, Tai Lake. And, I'll take Kiefer Crosby, man. I think that he's just a little bit tougher. I think he's a little bit more experienced, a little bit more durable. And I think I'm just relying kind of more on those things of just him being a little tougher, a little more gritty. And so, yeah, with that being said, moving on. We got Sudamari versus Kevin Borjas, man. And I think I'm going to go with Kevin Borjas on this one. But we could talk about Sudamari. Listen, he's very, very long. He almost reminds me of like a much thinner version, like a Max Holloway light. You get what I'm saying? Just without the volume and without the durability. But he is very long. He does have some good elbows. In his last fight, he almost got the finish with the elbows and the clinch. But the thing is that, and I've seen this in his fights where he's very chinny. He gets knocked down a lot. If I was him, I'd be utilizing the ground game against Kevin Borjas, because I think it's a horrible idea to really just stand up with him. I think Kevin Borjas, man, listen, he knocked down Joshua Van, gave him a very hard time, which, if you want to talk about like fighting time, wasn't very long ago when that happened. And I think that Kevin Borjas is very technical. He's got a lot of power. And I think that if, Sudamari isn't careful, I think he can get finished. And I think that's what might happen. I think that Sudamari might keep things on the feet, be very long, try to use the clinch, use the elbows, and I think Kevin's just going to go ma'am, and just come in with an uppercut, and I think that he's really going to piece him up, and I think that Kevin Borjas is going to get the finish, so I'll take that. So yeah, now we got some big fights, man. Now we're on to the big ones. All right, man, so listen. I had to turn off the recording and even try to pronounce this name. I don't know why. It's such an easy name. Not Sergei Pavlovich, of course, but who Sergei Pavlovich is fighting, Walo Cortes Acosta. I cannot believe how many times that was hard for me to say for absolutely no reason. But anyways, first big fight here in this card, and I got to take Walo Cortes Acosta, man. I think that he is a bit more, I think he's a decision merchant. He's not a very entertaining fighter, but he is going to grapple and wear down Sergei Pavlovich. He just seems, Sergei just seems more timid. Yes, he is powerful, and yes, he is technical when it comes to the striking, but doesn't seem as well-rounded in the grappling department, and I just think that's going to be a clear hole in his game. And Walo Cortes Acosta just doesn't really care about being flashy or entertaining or a knockout artist. He just kind of goes, yeah, and he's knocked out people before, I will say that, but it's the heavyweight division. People are going to get knocked out eventually. Walo Cortes Acosta, he kind of goes in there and mixes things up. And Sergei Pavlovich, listen, on any other given day, I would have said he probably would smoke him in this fight and he has no business losing. But unfortunately, he looked very timid in the Volkov fight, and I don't know how he's going to come back from something like that. He seems very timid in his performances, and I think that Walo Cortes Acosta is going to win. I just think he's going to grapple. I think he's going to kind of bore the audience to death. But I think he is going to beat Sergei Pavlovich. I think he's just going to kind of wrestle around with him and just do that. So next, man, we got Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling. Now, this is Grappling Express, man. I think this is actually going to be a very, very entertaining fight. I think it's going to be very underrated. So Brian Ortega, man, listen, they both got very elite levels of grappling. Brian Ortega, man, T-City, his reputation, man, I don't even got to talk about it. It needs no introduction. His jiu-jitsu is very ahead of his time. Obviously, the only holes in his game are striking. And also, he is a little washed. He's just not on the, I don't believe that he will compete at the highest levels of the sport anymore. I don't really see him beating like a Diego Lopez. I don't really see him beating even an Aljamain Sterling. Now, I did say that in my last video that I actually wanted Brian Ortega to fight Lerone Murphy. And I kind of do still prefer that fight a little bit more. But, people do want to say that Lerone Murphy deserves a title shot. And I don't think so. I think it's just too big of a jump. I think it's a little too premature to say that. Yeah, Lerone Murphy had a phenomenal knockout. But also, like, Lerone Murphy was getting a little pieced up. But this isn't about Lerone Murphy. This is about Brian Ortega and Aljamain Sterling. I wanted Brian Ortega to fight Lerone Murphy. But Aljamain Sterling, listen, I think he is 6th or 7th ranked in the featherweight division. And Brian Ortega is 5th. So I think it makes sense. I think that if Aljamain Sterling does go into the top 5, I don't want to say that he should fight Lerone Murphy, because then I think that would just leave a good opening for maybe like someone else to fight Aljamain Sterling. But yeah, like, listen, I think Aljamain Sterling, he is better overall. I do think that he's better overall than Brian Ortega. Also, considering Aljamain Sterling is a former champion, he's much stronger at featherweight. I think he's about equal to grappling of Brian Ortega at this point in both of their careers. I think that Aljamain Sterling's better on the feet. I think he's more athletic. I think he's a little stronger. And I don't think he has as many holes in his game as Brian Ortega does. Brian Ortega, he's just a real big threat on the ground. But on the feet, people have shown time and time again just how human he is. I mean, like Holloway, Volkanovski, Lopez. The list can go on of people who have caught him, who've made him look human, right? Who've made him look very, very vulnerable, and have completely taken away the grappling. And if you're a guy like Aljamain Sterling, with a guy who, you're equal to that grappling, you kind of can do whatever you want in this fight. So I'm really going to take Aljamain Sterling, because I don't really know where this fight would go, where Brian Ortega has an absolute massive advantage over Aljamain Sterling. I would say on the ground, maybe Brian Ortega has a better chance than on the feet. But then again, at the same time, he's going against Aljamain Sterling, who's really, really sharp, really high level, also competes in jiu-jitsu as well. So I got to go with Aljamain Sterling, man. And I know that might be a hot take, and I know that might not be as popular, but I really got to go with him. So, yeah, now we're on the main event, man. Now we got Johnny Walker and Zhang Minyang. I think that this is going to be a pretty underrated banger, but I got to go Zhang Minyang right off the bat. Now, Johnny Walker, he is very unorthodox. He's very explosive. He can just whip out spitting shit, jumping shit, flying shit, your shit, my shit, bunch of shit. But on top of that, he gets his shit rocked. He's chinny. Jamal Hill, it even goes back to like Corey Anderson, right? When Johnny Walker was on his rise up and people were saying that he's like the guy to beat John Jones, Corey Anderson rocked him real bad. And Johnny Walker is good, but he's not great. Like, he's not like a real great heavyweight. And that's not even to be disrespectful. That's just based off of the rankings. You get what I'm saying? Like, he's a real good light heavyweight, but he's not among the greats, the elites, you know what I mean? The best. And I think Zhang Minyang, he is showing that potential. He's powerful, he has high pressure, and he loves to fight. And I know that people say, well, oh, Bailey, that's not an advantage, or that's not a trait. It is, because he's not afraid to finish people. Zhang Minyang, he has 19 finishes, all of them by the first round. And that is crazy work. Do I think that he's going to knock out Johnny Walker? Absolutely, I do. Listen, and even if it does go past the first round, that doesn't like discredit Zhang Minyang at all, because I do still see him winning this fight. I think it's not if, it's kind of when Johnny Walker gets knocked out. And that's not to say that Johnny Walker's a bad fighter. It's just he's a very chinny fighter, and then you got Zhang Minyang, who's like, Asian Terminator. You know what I mean? He's going to go in there with a mission. He's going to go in there to be violent. He's going to take no prisoners, man. He's not going to care at all. He's just going to be like, no, okay, cool. You hit me. We're fighting. This is what we're going to do. And he's going to go in there and finish him. And I really believe that. So, I got to go with Zhang Minyang, man. You know, Johnny Walker's good, but he's not great. I think Zhang Minyang, he's a little bit tougher, a little less chinnier, and he's powerful, high pressure, and, you know, and his defense is just really, really good too. Where Johnny Walker, he has some holes in his defense, and he, you know, his hands are kind of low, he gets caught, and his chin doesn't really make up for it, you know what I mean? Because like I said, he gets finished. You know, so yeah, guys, this is going to be my calm little UFC fight night predictions in Shanghai. So let me know who you guys got to win, and I'll see you guys in the next video whenever I make one. Peace.